I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. Jordan Redaelli is safely on vacation. Andrew Kuo takes, you may have heard this before, no days off.
Also
Andrew Kuo, how are you doing, buddy?
Feeling safe, feeling good. It's Friday. Wow, episode 201. What a milestone. How do you feel?
A living and breathing testament to the fact that we have made 200 podcasts.
You have made, I have not made 200 podcasts. You have.
I have.
I Kuzma'd this situation.
I've made way more than that if we go back to the ancient days when Cookies was the Sham God Hour, then the Sham Dog Hour back on No Wave Radio.
There are some lost merch relics from that era. Totally designed, realized drops that never happened. So maybe only in design form, but it never actually materialized.
Maybe we should put out the Sham Dog logo tee. Do you have that graphic somewhere?
It's tweaky. Yeah, I can dig that up. It was kind of, it didn't not remind me of Ratfink. That
was the one that had a dog using LSD, right?
Yes, with bloodshot eyes.
That's the one.
Yes, the classic Sham Dog logo.
Yeah, it feels like a limited release.
Yeah, well,
exclusive.
No tripping dog, no big face, you know?
Sorry, we're getting in the weeds a little bit. That's some retro Cookies talk right there. So anyway, yes, we are on to our next 100, 201. And I'm going to be totally frank. Not much has changed since episode 200.
It wasn't
it's not even 24 hours later.
It wasn't a burner of an NBA news cycle from yesterday.
What do we got?
Well,
get to that.
There's a ton of stuff happening in the world, and maybe not a ton of stuff happening like physically in my apartment.
When's the last time you saw daylight?
Like experienced daylight? You mean not from a window? You mean
I mean basked. Like felt those rays gently dance across your exposed flesh.
Which is important because I have, and people with my skin tone always have really low vitamin D counts. So my doctor, who's awesome, is like, you're probably fine. It looks dangerously low, but every Asian person has low counts. But you should get outside not only to like maybe boost it up, but like it's important to go outside, man.
This has been my position on this all along. Get out, get some air, get some sunshine. But as mentioned, it's also tougher for you because you're in a densely populated area. If you are a Manhattanite, where can you go where there aren't going to be people? This could be a little like heads up, a little primer for people in Manhattan who might be trying to get a little breeze, a little wind in their hair. Like, what's a good spot to go where you probably won't encounter people within 6 feet?
I gotta be honest, like, well, to answer the first part of your question, it's been like 5 days since I've been outside. I missed the grocery window. I don't believe we differ on this, but I think you're right and I'm less right. But I don't believe I should be basking in sunlight if I can handle it, because I think any risk is too much. But whatever. I think the streets are empty. 5 days ago, the grocery store had people in it, but the Lower East Side is feels empty. And the scary thing is it's exactly what a movie would look like in this situation. There are not that many revelers. There was one beautiful day 5 days ago.
Did you say revelers?
Well, 5 days ago, there were a few revelers, like people I saw a rollerblader, like a shirtless rollerblader from 1997. He was just like doing tricks in like a median area, and people with
but what's the problem with that though? That's totally fine, right?
Well, we've had this discussion before, but I think if you can help it, you shouldn't be outside at all. I think you should just like get your groceries and come back, or go to the doctor and get your medicine and go right back home, because as we're finding out, as we knew since day one, just breathing might spread this virus. So like, let's just be safe for 2 weeks, and we weren't. So let's just maybe be safe for another 2 weeks. I don't know.
It depends, because there are certain places around the world that are far more strict about people leaving their house. And like the Philippines, like Duarte's like threatening to have people shot on sight, like straight loony shit.
He is a interesting, terrifying dude.
Yeah, compelling.
Terrifying.
Really, just an interesting guy. But yeah, we don't need to rehash our feelings about the relative dangers of being outside the walls of your own home. But where would you go even in Lower Manhattan? Because for me, living in Brooklyn, you can go outside and not be around people. There aren't that many individuals walking the street, so you can see someone and kind of cross the street. You can avoid touching things. It's if Manhattan is like that and there aren't people around, then maybe you don't need a secret spot for seclusion.
Yeah, it's pretty empty. I haven't been by Tompkins Square Park or like big parks. I'm not really near those, but I was considering walking across the street, across the bridge. I'm sorry, Williamsburg Bridge, to maybe go buy some food from my friend's restaurant, but I decided not to because that just didn't feel totally responsible.
Yeah, I have friends who are walking it back and forth every day. They say it's cool.
Yeah, it's fine. This is my own constitution. I just look at the numbers and I just feel like
if you're scared, say you're scared, Kuo.
That's all I've been saying this whole time. I want to make a shirt that says I'm scared and I'm sad, but like, I don't know what's going on. And if they're telling me, if scientists and smart people are saying like, just stay inside, please, for God's sake, stay inside, I can do that. That's the least I can do.
I don't know.
I mean, hospital workers are begging us to stay inside, right?
Yeah, but I also personally feel like those are because people still are like congregating, like people are still hanging out. And I've heard about parties that are still going on the Lower East Side.
I'm not into that, but
I'm not into that either.
Yeah.
I'm saying people are still throwing and hosting house parties.
I think finding wrinkles that you can like slide into this is not the time for that. I
just don't think anyone has said no one should leave the house. No one has said that. That's like not a thing. From CNN, like they're saying it is important to go out of the house and get air and get sunshine and walk around.
I have not seen that.
That's like what Cuomo said that 2 days ago. He's like, it is important to get out of your house.
Oh, he said, God bless you. But that was kind of like, good luck out there, guys. This, we did not flatten the curve and people did that. But it's okay. People have to figure out, there have not been military orders or distinct orders or punishment. No one is going to arrest you if you're outside. And some people respond to that. But I don't know. I think it's my responsibility to give it a break for a couple weeks.
I hear you. And look, the more people who stay inside, the more space it is out there for the people who want to get a little bit of air.
So that's
Fair
cool
enough.
too. Yeah.
So anyway, you have no advice on places that people can go and hide in Manhattan and get fresh air. What about like Times Square at midnight? I kind of want to just drive over there and wheel around empty Times Square. Are the lights still on?
I believe the lights are still on. I'll stare out my window late at night at like 3 a.m. and there's still cars out there. There's still like Ubers rolling around.
People got to go to real jobs, hospitals, things like that.
Huge.
They're not taking public transportation if they can help it, I believe.
And not to sound hokey, but shout out to the supply chain of food. Like, imagine if we had a shortage of food. It would be pandemonium. But there's like groceries in our for us to buy, which I think is pretty incredible. I see like these trucks dropping off like mac and cheese, and I'm like, shout out to these dudes, man, or these people. I don't know. That's like, it's a very beige thought, but I was very grateful to be able to get fresh food.
I do not find that a beige thought at all. I find that very important, because at this point, everything else has been disrupted, except for the ability to get food in the supermarket.
Yeah, man.
And I went to Wegmans, and it wasn't rationing exactly, but it was like if one kind of, like one piece of meat in terms of like each one. If they had like a bunch of hamburger patties, it was like you get one max. If you wanted to go and get a chicken after that, you could go get like one chicken. Yeah. And they were doing that with everything, like cans of corn, milk, eggs, etc. And it was pretty reassuring to go into a supermarket and they had everything for the most part. Yeah. You could shop as normal. And I agree with you. It was I didn't love the whole experience, because who wants to be in a supermarket? But it was nice feeling as if the supply chain was intact.
Yeah.
And we weren't on the verge of killing each other for food.
Yeah. I mean, just watching how we behave with the whole toilet paper thing, which has like a lot of people have crunched numbers and being like, actually, we were right to hoard it. But anyway, there's articles out there being like, here's some numbers and where toilet paper goes in office buildings, and individuals were right to stock up, which is kind of an interesting take. But yeah, imagine if we had that experience at a place where we purchase food, where like shelves of grains were just gone,
but it was like vegetables. That. It was like that, and it's more that imagine if it continued. Because I went into a local supermarket.
Oh, the first few days were insane.
And the meat shelves were empty. The cereal shelves were empty. The pasta shelves were empty. The beans and grains were like completely raided. Yeah. But in general, they're fine now.
Yeah, they're back. And I remember talking to my grocery people, and they're like, it's in a truck like right outside. We have more of everything. I went into Dwayne Reed to see if they had toilet paper like 5 days in, and I was like, do you guys have toilet paper? They're like, we have so much, it's just in the truck. If you wait 5 minutes, I'll hand you as much as you want, and that was reassuring. They're like, it's not gone.
Wegmans had a mountainous pile right by the door. It's the first thing you see. And you come in, you're like, oh well, if toilet paper is no issue here, I guess we're in good hands.
I've been finding all these random Purell, like small Purell bottles in my house that I've like accumulated through the years of like taking flights. And, they're like old and half full, but they're all over my house. And they're like, oh, here's another one from my plane trip to LA,
Is it still impossible to get hand sanitizer? Because I have not had any I haven't had any at all. Yeah. I have like none.
My newspaper deli has a box behind the counter, but it's $7 each for like a small container. So I'm guessing it's out there, but they're being marked up.
God damn it. These capitalists. Keeping my hands dirty.
I know. Yeah. Soap is
No,
out
I've
there,
just been going with like intense hand washing routines.
Yeah.
As everyone else is.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just like a bar of... or just like a little liquid soap and a bottle of water is like even better than hand sanitizer.
It's funny because you're seeing the kind of cultural shift that all journalism and media has, and now it's based on our new reality, which is working and living from home. And people are realizing that maybe Zoom is a really compromised way of doing business. Where it's like, who's getting this information? Whose data is being harvested? Whose chat logs are being recorded and shared? And it's interesting because I saw Elon Musk said that he'd banned his employees from using Zoom.
Because of privacy?
I think that's it. That seems to be a rising concern amongst people who jumped on the bandwagon as it being a totally reasonable and easy way to connect with people, to now walking it back and being like, is Zoom actually good? Or are they, like every other tech company, probably bad?
It's like we're seeing how much someone could get away with, right? Like tech companies like Zoom, like why wouldn't you say if you were in the room, if you're for profit and your stocks are publicly traded, like, okay, let's say this thing passes. How do we dominate this market moving forward? How do we not become Blockbuster Video? How do we become Netflix? And they're looking for every edge because unfortunately that's like the America we live in. But I expect nothing less from something like Zoom that I did not even think about for more than a second before all this happened.
I still have never used it.
I mean, should we pawn on Zoom?
No.
Zoom have we don't want to give the feds our Iverson takes. Get out of here.
We could just use, something like Instagram, where obviously a benevolent
good to go. Yeah.
company is overseeing all that data.
Yeah, you can get this coronavirus test as long as you give us your social security number, your mother's maiden name. You'll have the results back in a week.
I love those little, sort of not even polls, just sort of questions that float around Twitter. They're like, name your favorite teacher in 4th grade. Like, what's your mom's maiden name?
What's your favorite animal? What was your first dog's name then?
You look at him like, this is so obviously credit card phishing.
Yeah. I did that poll last night where, like, guess what fictional character you are, of like, that one's that's been going around that isn't BuzzFeed. I did that last night and the questions were so bad. It's like, are you nice or are you mean? I'm like, oh yeah, people are going to answer this one right. So I basically found myself like a true emotional Tobias Harris. Just 50% of everything. It's like, are you awesome or are you terrible? I'm like, who are you asking? 50% of both. It's just like, are you patient or are you impatient? I'm like, who are you asking? 50% of both, I guess. And I ended up with Bruce Banner.
I think that's a fine one to end up with. I don't know. I've just been funneling all these images of my face and sort of biometrics so I can find out what Renaissance painting I look like.
Oh, cool. Or you want to find out what you would look like aged after coronavirus, right? Oh, it's cool. I'm still handsome, but a little older and wiser.
Oh, it turns out I'm that weird corpse being eaten by the monster in the Goya painting.
Check.
That's me.
But
monster. That was a god. That was a god eating his son, right? Or eating, I don't know, whatever.
Yes. But
some Greek shit.
Right. Some Dante related. But my vanity got the best of me, and I was like, I kind of want to do this test too and see if I get Costanza. Yeah, and I was like, am I Costanza or am I more of a Fusilli Jerry? But I was a Marvel comic superhero before he becomes a superhero.
So that's the monster before he turns into the Hulk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the scientist who loses his top when you talk about Andrew Yang, and then I become a big Asian Hulk.
What else is happening in the work from home environment? There's like challenges going around. It's like all the really boring stuff that was happening before is now just happening within the welcoming walls of our own homes.
I'm kind of disappointed, to be honest, of our most talented social media content providers. It hasn't been fire, man. It's been nice, but I was expecting something. I was expecting Joel Embiid to come through with some great jokes and like some NBA players to maybe do like something funny that we talk about. Man, we got to imagine.
There's just not a lot of humor, and people don't have great environments for stuff. Drake put out a new video where he's like in his own house and he's wearing like a $25,000 jacket. Young Jeezy put out a video where he's in like a Kroger's supermarket rapping in basketball shorts.
Can we talk about that Drake video for a second? That house terrified me. It was terrifying to me. It did not feel like somebody who has like ever lived in a home that felt chill. I was like, what is going on in your brain where you chose to live like this? It felt like Adam Sandler's showroom in Uncut Gems. I'm like, what is happening? You have not chilled for a second in your life. Do you know what I mean? Everything was marble behind a glass case. There was like big desks for no reason. There was like a huge kitchen that just kind of looked like it was from 1999, like a weird McMansion in New Jersey. And there was a pool, and I was like, do you swim? This is so odd. Like, why would the whole place be marble if you actually swam? You'd slip and fall, Drake.
What did you think about his cause statuettes? They're statues. They were large.
Yeah, they're the big ones. The half, like, the Damien Hirst nod, right? It was half his character and half the inside of his character. He had a black and white one and a color one. I'm a Cause fan. You're not going to catch me talking smack about Cause. One of a really fun topic to talk about, but I think he's a really cool artist. So I was expecting more, to be honest. I saw a Warhol in there. I saw 2 Causes. I saw a picture of Snoop, and someone online reminded me that he had a painting of Marilyn Monroe in his old house. So this is a step up, maybe.
A painting of Marilyn Monroe, like every single Airbnb by someone who has multiple Airbnb residences in like Mexico City.
What are the most ubiquitous artworks? Like a James Dean photo, Marilyn Monroe.
It's that, and it's the same Marilyn Monroe.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's the Surratt-looking pixelated one.
Yeah.
I think.
In the Airbnbs I've stayed at, there's been a lot of like Eiffel Towers and Taj Mahals. A lot of cherry blossoms from Japan. I see a lot of photos of that. Like, what is the most, which is hilarious because Damien Hirst's new series is Cherry Blossoms, which is a departure. But what are the most beige artworks that you can encounter?
The most beige artwork of all is the Plot Against America.
That I have not been able to stay awake, man. I'm ready for this.
I encourage you to watch it and then immediately bail. Like you've been holding the bag.
Like, do I like the actors? Yes. Am I terrified of Nazis? Yes. Do I like period pieces? Is the story interesting? I don't know. It's as if I was watching a Blazers game, man.
Does Drake have a grand piano with a bunch of flowers painted on the underside of the lid? The answer is yes.
He does not live in a space. He made that apartment like a kid thinks about a rich place. Being like, well, where's my grand piano? Where's my awesome toys? Is my pool big enough? It's like a child would think about, like, dwelling. And we know he's like a now responsible family man. So I was surprised to see so much marble.
It's a lot of marble. Very cold.
Yeah.
It does look like a place. Did he model it after the mansion that gets invaded in Shadas? No, in Belly.
Oh, man. Hype Williams.
It feels like that mansion. Like the one that was at Junior Reed was in that gets invaded.
Yep. This is totally some Hype Williams related taste. And Hype Williams comes from, I think, the Scarface generation of enthusiasm, the peak Scarface generation of enthusiasm. And I think Drake's house has all of that, being like, well, this is baller, right? I'm like, oh, right. This is some Scarface stuff. Totally. I was shocked to not see any big cats, is all I'm saying.
Oh, everyone's got big cats on the brain these days.
Big cats never happened, right? Like, where was his cameo from, like, a cast member of Tiger King?
Where was... Oh, man, they're all so bad. Where was the guy in the jet ski? At the end, if the guy in the jet ski came in, that would have crushed it.
Amazing.
And just stayed a nice 6 feet away.
Yeah, if he was lounging poolside, I'd be like, all right, that's like proof of life. You actually made this video this month. Because, you know, in the beginning of the video, he has, like, shots of empty streets. I guess it's Toronto, I'm assuming. But empty Toronto streets. And I'm like, oh, he's trying to give us proof of life. And then he just, like, waltzes through his house like it was from 1983, directed by Brian De Palma.
You know, in both these videos we've been discussing, rappers were, Jeezy and Drake both, were wearing, you know, protective masks. It's a really, really nice segue for rap music because rappers like masks anyway and like bandanas. So like we are going to get a lot of content with rappers wearing safety masks over the next 18 months, like over the next rest of our life.
It's a video director's dream. You don't have to have any syncing or continuity. Just be like, yeah, you don't have to rap.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Just throw your hands up and we can. This is what I mean by proof of life. Like, show me a big cat. Show me a reference to something we're talking about now, or I don't even believe you didn't film this 10 years ago.
Are you saying it was CGI mask?
No, maybe he had the mask, but it was for a different song. I'll never know. I can't see him. I mean, he's dancing, but he always dances like that. I thought the track was pretty good. I'm not trying to clown Drake. I think he's amazing. But that video could have been funnier, man.
Someone had made a point on Twitter. I think it was, what's his name, Nas? Like the, well, not the rapper Nas. The
guy, the RZA, I think is his name. Oh, yeah, I like him.
And he had made a point about hoping that, I think it was him, that Drake puts out an album that's just like the stuff he's always put out, and everyone's just like, fuck off, dude. You know, he's like, here I am, like, doing my regular Drake things, and you're like, kind of should have pushed the album back. But he's cagey, and as you said, he put out a video that's now. So is he quickly adjusting his album, or is he going to put out the same one? Like, do you put out an album with club songs right now? Does it work? Does D Nice introduce it to Ellen? You know, how does a club record go off? I guess he's still shooting for TikToks and memes, though. Yeah. And you can certainly do that in your bathroom.
Yeah, he's absolutely shooting for the TikTok audience.
So maybe it's the perfect moment for that.
I think so. The track was nice. I mean, he's an opportunist. He's been relevant for a long time. Like over a decade, around a decade. He has had, like, his downfall is not yet happened. We still care about him. At least I do. I saw the video dropped and I immediately clicked on it and devoured it like less gruel. And how has he stayed this interesting for this long? Like, people love to hate him, people love to love him, and this will be a TikTok thing, right?
He makes hits. I generally don't really listen to Drake albums much, but I don't dislike his music. As someone who finds him like generally sort of bland as a character, but I think he's talented, and I do like a lot of his records. Yeah. But to your point, we were discussing Santos Party House and you DJing there and Vashti's parties. Drake was there. That was a long time ago. Yeah. I remember meeting Kid Cudi there, and Drake was there, and he shouted out Vashti, I think, and Santos in some song at one point over the last couple of years. Like, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people knock Drake for kind of consuming young artists, and if he sees a young artist, he's like, well, now you're under my umbrella, and I want to use like this island vibe to my benefit, and you will always be my protege because I'm just a mega star and you're just coming up. But you can flip it the other way, being like, Drake does his due diligence like Kanye did, you know, with his blog back in the day.
Yeah, there's a vampiric quality to both of them. The Peter Thiel blood of the youth.
Yeah, I mean, that's a way to stay young, right? Like, drink the blood of the youth. Ooh, vampires.
I mean, they both are guys who pay attention to what's happening, and it certainly has played a role in their ability to stay relevant. Like, it's not a coincidence.
And yeah, exactly. And I'd rather have them being influenced by new music than them trying to write like classic music, like looking to the artists before them, which is kind of what rock and roll did, right? Like, you have Dave Grohl, who was in Nirvana as a new idea, new-ish, or the end of a new idea. And then as his career proceeds, he just ends up kind of strumming along to classic rock signifiers, you know, and I'm glad maybe Drake and Kanye do the opposite.
In an odd way, Atlanta rappers, I think, have it tougher because if you were sort of a East Coast classicist, your sound is more, if you came out in the 2000s, heat makers, say, or sample based like French Montana's early stuff was.
Crack cocaine, right? Like rapping with tight syllables on beats.
Yeah, and Atlanta rappers, the stuff that they came out on 15 years ago doesn't sound, it's different. It's definitely different, but it doesn't sound that different. So it's really the emphasis just on you being an old rapper. Like 2 Chainz sounds great on new beats, but you're still sort of like, it's 2 Chainz. He's an old rapper.
Yo, he was an old rapper when he was a young rapper. Like he was old in his peak, right? Like
yeah,
when
he's in his 40s.
Yeah,
I think. I'm pretty sure.
I would almost say, like, are we sure he's not in his 50s?
I think so. Because there was that clip of him in a basketball game doing like a reverse jam in high school. So we actually know when that occurred.
All right, I'm an asshole. He's 42.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, he was also had a cameo in Law and Order SVU.
But I don't know. Maybe it's easier for those guys. But in my mind, it's kind of harder because then again, the production from like Shorty Red on Jeezy's first stuff definitely does not sound the same as the stuff that's like Metro Boomin was doing or
no
guys today.
Sure.
I don't know.
I mean, this kind of pulls us back to our conversation yesterday, but I was trying to revisit Manny Fresh tracks, and I found myself listening to Thug Motivation 101, which is just like an incredible record. It still sounds just phenomenal. But yeah, that production is not necessarily forward thinking. That record feels like a classic record, even in the time, right?
It was the best.
The best. It's so good.
It's the best.
Coupled with the merchandise and the snowman stuff, like it had me. It had me.
It's very Kuo.
I'll take that, but
it's a compliment.
No, the highest compliment. Thank you, sire. In the way that the merch related to it was cartoonish, made of a child, which had it had a dark reference to it. It was about dealing drugs, but.
And for people who are younger or maybe weren't in a city where that album was popular, it was a ubiquitous T-shirt. It was white or black and had the Jeezy snowman in huge icon over the chest, and maybe something on the back that said like "Can't Stop the Snowman" or whatever. But
yeah,
I mean,
Can't Ban the Snowman.
Can't Ban the Snowman, excuse me. And they were also like 7XL, so it was just
amazing.
Teens running everywhere in gown-shaped, billowing muumuus with a malevolent snowman on the front. Really the best.
So awesome. And it was appropriated so many ways down the line that I remember in one August on Delancey Street, they were selling like back to school, man, but large kid sizes. And I'm like, this is just an adult medium. This is incredible. And it had like the mean snowman with like pencils around him and erasers and like it had a Trapper Keeper vibe to it. And it was awesome. And there's a
man, was there a Trapper Die, Trapper Keeper?
Oh my god,
vector there?
Yeah, there was some crossover at the time too. Yeah, the Trapper Keepers have that amazing like grid, right? And the futuristic or now old like Tron style lettering. But that and the high hater, buy hater Mano shirts were just like, that was my favorite era of Canal Street stuff. You can still buy mixtapes at that time. I remember buying like Can't Ban the Snowman 2. I think it was a mixtape. It's like that was the golden age of Canal Street, I think.
We don't talk that much about like my old interviews until recently because now we've got time to kill, and I've interviewed both those guys, Jeezy and Mano.
No.
Neither one has a remarkable story, but Jeezy was super funny, and I liked him a lot. And I interviewed him for Playboy, I think. It was the only thing I actually wrote for that publication. They paid before publication, which was like pretty impressive.
That's incredible.
He was telling me that his favorite city in America for women was Detroit because they knew how to dress. And he then detailed a time when a woman showed up at his hotel room wearing nothing but black bandanas.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like she had an outfit that was just made of black bandanas.
That's cool. So they were tied together, so they became bigger garments that she tied on to her body.
That's what I inferred.
That's awesome. I was having trouble picturing it because I've never seen it. Like, or did she have like one huge black bandana? I don't know.
And it was just wrapped around her like a dumpling.
Or was it a designer thing that it was a dress like that looked like a black bandana?
That was done with like black bandana pattern.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know.
Could have been any of these things. But apparently it's unique to Detroit.
I love that city.
And it places them at the top of the heap, in Jeezy's opinion, in terms of women.
I like that.
And I interviewed Mano for someone, and we had lunch at that really old, not good Italian restaurant that's in Midtown, across from like Universal Records. And he was very chill with me. He's a very threatening guy.
Yeah.
He did like 8 years in prison for kidnapping.
What kind of kidnapping though? Kidnapping is so broad. I'm just curious.
I believe it was drug related.
That's scary.
Like a ransom scenario. Maybe I don't know. But he did go to prison for it.
Right, like the least scary kidnapping is like, well, it's still scary. It's like not letting someone out of your cab. Like that's considered kidnapping. So, but still very scary.
No, it was not that.
Yeah. Yes.
This was a drug-related kidnapping that led to a 5 to 15-year prison sentence.
Terrifying.
Oh, he's described this. He kidnapped his drug connect and tried to get a ransom. Oh, okay. Classic kidnapping stuff.
Yeah.
But he was an engaging, pretty funny dude. But yes, threatening. Had an aura of menace. Apparently, you pick that up when you're doing kidnappings.
Yeah, terrifying.
Not sure how you fake that.
One of my, how do I be discreet about this? One of my, I've never interviewed a rapper for, like on the record. I've never been in a room like on the record with anybody, but I've heard stories about Lil Wayne being very unpredictable and awesome, like the most fun ever. And then just turning on you, being like, are you guys just trying to set me up? Is this a takedown piece? You know, like, get out of my house. And being like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, we're cool, right? I'm sorry. I was just tired. And, like, that kind of stuck with me a little bit, being such a huge fan of his music, that it made total sense to me. And I think these guys' lives are really intense.
I interviewed Wayne over the phone one time, and he was really erratic. This was before Carter 3, and it was when his album had been pushed back for a while.
Carter 2 is my favorite Wayne record. I know that it's a little boom bappy, but that record's my favorite.
Yeah, it was between these two, and his album had been pushed back, and we were talking on the phone, and he was really hostile, and just kept saying, like, Ben, you're a bad listener. You're a bad listener, Ben.
This is
you're
what
a bad
I've heard.
listener.
Right.
And he was just so antagonistic, and I was honestly, I'm not exaggerating, like biting my knuckle to keep from laughing because I was recording this and I was thinking like, how is this going to be put in a Q&A format for, I forget which magazine it was for, but I think Sean Fennessy, now of The Ringer, was my editor for the piece.
Nice.
If I remember correctly. And I'm just like literally just biting my knuckle, being like, and he's like, Ben, you're a bad listener, Ben. Just a very bad listener. And then, you know, I asked him some question. It was really some benign shit too, where he said, I don't listen to anybody but myself. And I was like, okay, you know, when you're listening to your own music, you know, what are you listening for? Is there like a process? Like what's going through your mind when you start, if you only listen to yourself? Not a great question. I'm just trying to like bounce off of what he said. And he was like,
it's an alley-oop.
He's like, are you trying to get inside my head?
Yes, this is what I've heard.
I was like, he's like, you trying to get inside my head?
You trying to make me cry, bro?
He's like, do you think this is 60-60?
what did he mean?
Does he mean 2020?
2020?
60 minutes?
That's incredible. Someone should start that show as soon as possible.
And then his PR person jumped in and cut it off. It's like, look, I'm sorry. He was just going to go on like that. He's been doing this. And I was like, no, it was fine.
Yeah,
Honestly, it was great. And then, and again, I think it was Sean emailed me back when I filed the copy and was like, this reads as if it was really hostile. And I was like, it was. And he's like, okay, great, cool.
Yeah. And I have so much sympathy for someone like Wayne, because not only is it hard to be that big of a star, I think he was like a child star. Like, he was a young man when he was in the Hot Boys. And I don't think, sort of to Drake's house, when we see Drake's house, I'm like, you didn't have a childhood. You were just in front of a camera the whole time. I mean, Drake was also a child star. And I'm like, oh, like the little comforts that maybe someone like me and you find in a home, I'm like, you guys just don't have that part of your brain. It's like,
yeah, I mean, and also just to talk about Wayne's attitude, I am 100% sympathetic with people who had to go through those insanely boring media days.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I never took it personally, despite being singled out as a bad listener. I never took it personally at all, because those stink, and you generally never get good stuff from either side. No. If someone's like, okay, this artist, it doesn't matter the genre, or an athlete or whoever is doing a media day, get ready for bad stuff.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Shitty material that's going to be tough to publish, and that individual being bored and annoyed and giving you stock
over
answers.
Your shoulder.
It always ends up at best being mediocre in those dynamics. So I was never irritated. Wayne on a tour bus talking to someone from a magazine that he doesn't really pay attention to, asking about his album. It's more entertaining for him personally to be cranky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's like, how am I going to get through this call? By being a dick.
Right. I just got to keep awake, man. I always like to think about when Dan Le Batard talked about when he saw the end of himself as a journalist, is when he would go into like the locker room or a media press conference and just tell the person what to say. So it'd be like, so Wayne, do you think the Carter 3 is like a nice departure from the Carter 2, and you're taking your influences and suggestions from your experiences from the Hot Boys and your friend Juvenile and all these people? Yes or no? Like, yes. I'm like, cool, you said it. And that would just be the quote, you know? It's like, all right, I'm out of here. I got what I needed.
Yeah, it's when you don't have time in these, and you don't have time. You don't have any in-face sort of interactions. You're over the phone. You might have 10 minutes. You don't really know. You have a certain amount of questions you have to churn through because you need that for your story. Mm-hmm. There's no real conversation. There's no getting to know the subject. It's like basically just servicey.
Yeah, and that's the difference between a long form piece versus just like a talk of the town in the New Yorker, or like it's just something to frame the album around.
But even the talk of the town, those columns have the writer doing an activity and spending a couple hours with the subject, usually. And those are so much better than like the typical phoner.
True.
Also,
yeah.
They have good writers.
Yeah. I think the talk of the town doesn't do itself a service just because the pieces aren't long enough. So they did read like press releases a little bit. But like, this person is interesting for this reason. I'm like, and then it's just over. You know, there's just not enough real estate.
That's true. The format is naturally limited, like front of the book stuff.
But it's like, it's a pleasure. I like the New Yorker quite a bit.
So we're going to try to talk about a little bit of basketball, despite the fact that over the last 24 hours, very little has happened. But one piece of news that is interesting to us and potentially to other people is that LaMelo Ball and his manager, who is named Jermaine Jackson, different Jermaine Jackson.
Not that Jermaine Jackson.
Other Jermaine Jackson. Has apparently agreed to purchase his own Australian Basketball League team, which are the Hawks? What are they called? Hold on. I'm going to get it right.
How much money?
The Illawarra Illawarra Hawks in the Australian Basketball League.
Amazing. Do you know, is there a money figure attached to this rumor?
I did not see that at all.
I like that, though. I mean, it's hard to have a take other than awesome. Like, if the owner wants to sell and LaMelo Ball wants to be in the global basketball community in that capacity, let's do this.
They've been fairly upfront about their intentions here, which are that due to LaMelo entering the NBA next year and being a top pick and being a potential star
On the Knicks.
and he'll have a lot more resources then than he does now, and so will his agent for whatever that's worth. But they will be able to use his notoriety and his status to lure high school players in America to playing in Australia where they can be paid, and then will head over to the NBA just as he did while avoiding college basketball. It's a chance to be an elite high school player, make some money for a year, and then enter the draft using the model of LaMelo himself. I played for this team, and then I went third in the draft. I went first in the draft.
And let's not forget
You
to
can do
mention
this as well and make a little money.
RJ Hampton did the same thing with the New Zealand Breakers. My question to you is, do you think, we know it's changing quite a bit, do you think that helps? Or do you think it's just better to just chill in the States and then go straight to the draft?
I think it depends on the player, right?
For sure.
My general feeling, LaMelo also got lucky because this year there was no tournament.
Yeah.
And there was no league tournaments.
Yeah.
So the college basketball season doesn't have any impact or its usual impact in the way that guys are, elevated because of postseason play or diminished. It won't have any role on it. So like if guys only played 15 games and LaMelo played a whole season, LaMelo is the guy to look at. We actually have tape on him.
Kind of.
He's not the unproven one, but
yeah.
he's not the one who actually has to prove anything. It's the guys who played in the NCAA because of coronavirus.
Yeah, I mean, LaMelo is going to be a top 5, but yeah, it definitely
I just think
helps.
he's more of a known commodity than he
Yep.
would have been if the NCAA season went to its natural completion.
Right, and it created stars I can think of, like Leprechaun legend Gordon Hayward. Like, his run with Butler made him an intriguing draft pick to kind of a must-have because he just showed so much game in the tournament, and these kids are like growing by the day. Their situations kind of change with every game, and because they're so young and the sample size is so small. I'm trying to think of.
There's plenty of guys whose
It's
draft position soared.
5 every tournament.
I mean, like Steve Nash, who was basically, I don't know, TJ McConnell-esque. No, he had a huge shot against when he was playing for Santa Clara and had an incredible run.
Steph
and that
Curry,
absolutely pushed
Khalid
him up.
El Amin,
Yeah.
Mateen Cleaves. If you get to the Final Four and you have that profile, scouts are scouts. They're just like us, but they're influenced by all their biases. And when you're like, right, they have that killer instinct, that winning attitude, and they're the last thing I saw, maybe we should move them up our draft boards. And it totally happens every year.
Yeah, I mean, Hakeem Warwick blocking a crucial shot for Syracuse probably got him like 3 spots up.
Oh, for sure. Every Final Four team has a player that moves up 3 or 4 spots, I think.
But I do like what
Lonnie
LaMelo is
Baxter.
doing here.
Yeah.
Lonnie Baxter. I do love everything the Ball family does in terms of trying to jab at the NCAA and expose it as a
right.
hypocritical organization that takes advantage of people, and the Ball family continuously trying to thwart that model and come up with like an indie rock version
They're ethical
of the
trolls.
NCAA.
Yeah.
I'm all aboard.
I love the family. Yes, this is the right conversation because Triple B, even though it's funny and it failed in hilarious ways, that was an interesting idea. and you can tell that their father thinks outside the box. But this is a very interesting play by LaMelo and his agent to try to circumvent and kind of upend a system that we know is broken and just has a few years left.
It's a little bit like the HBO doc we discussed yesterday, The Scheme, where you have an outsider saying, how do I get into this? How can I shake up a system that you guys have built to benefit each other? How do I get in this game without having to be a part of your system that you won't allow me in? This, relationship between college coaches and the NBA and AAU and like what did this whole circuit where everything feeds off itself and all these people make tons of money. How do I get in that game? Sneaker companies, college basketball, pro agents. How do I get in? And I love that LeVar Ball and his sons are intent on getting in that game and not playing by the same rules.
And
it's cool shit.
Yeah, it's cool. And they're lucky because two of their brothers are skilled enough to make this real. Lonzo and LaMelo are good enough where they have moves, and it's hard to shine a light on these systems that have weaknesses when you don't have something people want. You know what I mean?
It doesn't work unless you have two guys in your family who are going to go top 5 in the NBA draft over a 5-year span.
Yeah. That it makes you relevant, and I love what they're doing with that relevancy. I think they are thinking the right way, and I just hope them all the success. I want them to be successful because I want Triple B to be a thing. It's not, but someone else will do it.
The powers that be scoffed at LeBron James when he booted traditional agents and said, Rich Paul and my guys, that's the team. They represent me. They're starting an agency. They're doing their thing. And now they're the most feared almost characters in the entire NBA.
They got all their players played where other players are looking at not maybe taking a pay cut of 25% this season.
Mm-hmm. That was exactly where I was headed with that. For all the scorn that was heaped on LeBron James for having his yokel Ohio buddies running his show instead of a Palinka. Now you have his clients being rewarded and more secure than the clients of like any other agent.
Yeah, because he got the money up front and there was a provision to do that, and he demanded that of his entire roster, and they will be paid this season, which was hard to predict that this would go down like this. But on before this happens, it seems greedy, whatever you say. I think it seems smart. But now I think they're going to draw more attention. And similarly to the Ball family, when you have LeBron on your side, you can act on your intuition easier.
I agree. Yeah. Shout out to the Balls. Shout out to LeBron's crew. Everyone who sticks an eye into the NBA and the NCAA and the existing structure is fine with me.
Yeah. I mean, let's keep on making adjustments. I really like Adam Silver, and I think he sees this too. He sees the worldview of this, but I think as we're seeing with the kerfuffle, the conundrum that this government is having, trying to help its country, everything has to adjust constantly. There's no way to stick to your guns and have it work with every situation. And I think Adam Silver sees that. He reads the room in a way that I appreciate compared to other big sports, big league commissioners.
Well, they have also adapted from a physical space of actual basketball to now a virtual domain. Tonight, we get to watch the stars of the NBA.
Let's go.
In action in the NBA 2K20. I don't know, some tournament, whatever it's called, some tournament with, 16 16 NBA ballers who have been seeded according to their rankings within the game are going to play in a tournament tonight starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Superstars such as Kevin Durant, Trae Young, Montrezl Harrell, DeMarcus Cousins, Rui Hachimura, Michael Porter Jr.,
Derek Jones Jr.?
Cousins back. This is exciting, but this is not taking the form of, like, maybe this is... It's not as big as I thought esports were going to get. Like, this is kind of like a tepid idea that is interesting enough to just execute. But
so this is on ESPN tonight. ESPN 2 tonight at
2.
8
Yes,
from
very important.
more ESPNs from 8:30 to 11:30, and apparently there's a preview show that starts at 7. Oh, Durant is 7:30 to 8:30. Derek Jones versus Kevin Durant.
Yeah, they're ranked according to their rankings in the game.
Yeah, so then they're doing more games on Sunday, then Tuesday, then the finals and semifinals are next Saturday. Anyway, so I guess if you want to watch Kevin Durant play against Derek Jones Jr., it is your chance. If you have been cultivating a yen for that experience, booyaka.
I love it. I think esports is extremely watchable, but like everything, this has to be packaged right. They have to present us and frame it in a way where, like, the announcer's interesting, right? Like, shout out to Mike Breen, who I think is an amazing... He's more a part of our basketball memory than I even give him credit for, I think. Obviously, Marv Albert, obviously TNT. But if they just have uninteresting people framing this, it's going to fall flat. It needs a production. So I'll tune in. I'll check it out.
I might check it out.
Yeah, I mean... ESPN I'm a big ESPN fan, and they, like every big company owned by Disney, has issues that we can go into later, but like I think I really love their product, and I really love a lot of their shows on TV, and we're seeing how their dominance of this world is predicated on live events, kind of, because they have live NBA games, and maybe they're trying to corner this market or try to suss out if this is possible, but I have not tuned into ESPN for weeks.
No, neither have I. But with this tournament, I wonder if some guys in the league are notoriously nasty at 2K, or if it's one of those things where it's reliant on like the team you use and how you play. Because when they did the tournament for Call of Duty, I don't play that game. I'm not a gamer, so I don't know how good people are, but people were saying like, oh, Ben Simmons is filthy. Like, he's holding his own against pros. Like, he's really, really good. I wonder, is like Kevin Durant like great at this, or is he just kind of like pretty good?
This is what I love about this setup, because they're seeded by their in-game rankings. So Durant's 1, Trae Young is 2, down the line, Whiteside rightfully 3 above Mitchell, but has no bearing on how good they are at the game. So Derek Jones Jr. just might wipe Kevin Durant.
Well, Mitchell and Booker were both in that Call of Duty one. So I'm going to guess they are fairly agile gamers. They have, nicely opposable thumbs, quick reflexes. They seem to be good at games.
Look at you clowning the gaming community.
I'm not clowning them. I'm saying these guys seem to be the creme de la creme of the NBA's gaming community.
Are they the prom kings of the gaming community?
They're definitely prom kings. Zach LaVine, it's prom kings left and right all over here. Yeah. Ayton, Michael Porter Jr., it's just prom kings.
But in the game, are they prom kings? Maybe they're
Harrison Barnes, dude, it is amazing. They just went and got all the prom kings.
Maybe in the game, they're 2K geniuses.
I'm interested in this theory that being a prom king on the court in real life lends itself to being good at cyber sports.
There's 5 prom kings here. There's a bona fide 5, maybe 6 prom king. Oh, Michael Porter's a prom king.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Maybe prom
Barnes is a prom king. KD's a prom king.
KD's not a prom king.
Oh, He's the king of prom kings.
He averages more than 2 assists a game and more than 5 rebounds. We have to stick to the criteria.
That's true. He is awesome. I think he might be the GOAT prom king.
Which is very good, but he doesn't qualify.
Okay, fine.
And also, Hachimura doesn't qualify because he doesn't score 20 points. We got to stick to it. We got to be prom king 1. But later on, stay tuned for prom king 2. More prom kings. Yeah, I'm interested in this. So I went through like the overall. I know nerds always argue about the overall rankings of 2K every year it comes out. It looks pretty good, man. Not, it excludes injury and all that, but LeBron James, Giannis, Harden, Davis, Kawhi as the top 5. Sounds good to me. Luka Doncic is 7, which I kind of love. I think the most controversial ranking of recent memory was Melo outside the top 100. Was that right?
I don't know. I'd never pay attention to those, and I also get them confused with like Sports Illustrated or ESPN.
Yeah, totally. I like to follow this a little bit. Steph Curry is ranked 99 as a 3-point shooter. He's got like a different shine on his logo. It's like a spectrum kaleidoscope logo.
All right, let's move on.
Oh, the video game hater brings up video games just to clown it.
Reading off video game rankings is not... It's not the content we need in this time of crises.
What do we
can do better.
Bring it.
Let's talk about Tim Duncan.
Oh, God. The ultimate ugly baby. You've brought an ugly baby into the room.
I think I've turned against Duncan. For years, I was always saying that Duncan was better than KG. And that Duncan was like... whatever, the greatest power forward of all time, one of the greatest centers, a top 5 player of all time. Kind of out on Duncan.
Keep on going.
I mean, he's really great and one of the best defensive centers of all time.
Sounds like you're still into Duncan.
I mean, he's great. He's great. But it's even with the game evolving over the last few years, you can't hold the players' era against them and what they did. Like Duncan played he came of age in the greatest era of centers, and he was dominant. But you look at him now, and you're like, awesome player. But like, were you good at offense? Were you actually? And I don't know. He was a mid-range specialist who shot bank shots. Wasn't that accurate at them. Wasn't a phenomenal free throw shooter for much of his career. Good passer, not a fantastic one. Couldn't really shoot at all outside of 14 feet. Never developed that range, even as the game evolved. I love him. And again, I think being great in your era matters. But I'm just not excited about him on that like top 5 or 10 list when I think about the greatest players of all time. It's just not capturing my imagination right now. KG captures my imagination.
Both up for the Hall of Fame. So this is current events relevant. Keep on going. You have not yet convinced me. I think he's amazing.
I think Duncan was clearly one of the best centers of all time, and considering him a power forward at this point is just a nod to when he played. He was 6'11", super long arms, couldn't shoot outside of 10 feet. He is a modern center in every possible regard. And they would play him alongside Robinson and then Rasho
Nesterovic.
Whatever.
Tiago.
But they insisted on playing him or Splitter, even on championship teams. They insisted on playing him aside another defensive big because this is a Popovich strategy. And we've seen Brett Brown use that in Philly sometimes. Like they like having 2 big guys on the court because it helps defensively and with rebounding, and then they'll adapt from that basic set as the game goes on. And the Spurs did that, bringing in Boris Diaw and moving one of their centers, either Duncan or Splitter, to like more of a traditional pivot position. But so Duncan as a 4 just doesn't feel the same as Garnett as a 4 to me now. A guy who could have guarded every single position, a guy whose shooting range easily would have extended beyond the 3-point arc had he been taking those shots. Duncan just doesn't have the full arsenal of skill sets that intrigue me about what he would be like going forward in the NBA. But I look at Garnett as someone a little bit like Iverson, who was betrayed by his era.
Are you succumbing to dribble bias?
No, but Garnett was a better shooter by a ton. He was a better passer. He was more defensively versatile. It's hard for me to... I was a defender of Duncan for years and years and years, and now I'm looking back and I'm like, Garnett suffered because dumb coaches tried to put him at the 3. They wouldn't play him at the 5.
Garnett was amazing.
He didn't take threes. I'm like, he was a victim, and Duncan was a beneficiary.
I'll still take Duncan, man. Without reading off stats, all of his stats are incredible. He's one of the pillars of one of the greatest runs of any team in history. He is very boring, and he's an ugly baby, right? But he knows his game. I mean, he only shot like 40% from outside 10 feet, but he did his damage down low. He was an insane rim protector. I'm not even thinking about hardware. I still have him.
He is absolutely a top 5 defender of all time.
Yeah, he's a wonderful player, and I have him right next to Shaquille O'Neal in my all-time list, which is like right around top 5. Duncan, to me, is right. He's not an agile outside shooter. He wasn't an extraordinary passer, but the things he did so well for so long gets him there.
Again, we're talking shades of gray.
For sure. No, I like this idea.
Duncan's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm just looking back with more sympathy for someone like KG after this Iverson-Nash conversation.
Garnett's awesome,
where
too.
One of these guys benefit from a system and the other one was hampered by it.
But you got to win the games you play in, right? Like if you.
But now we're just talking wins. Like No,
I'm not talking about wins. I'm talking about that was like hypothetical. I'm talking about. You're right. Duncan was given the chance to excel, and he did. We can't really fault him for that.
No. I mean, we're talking about a top 10 player here,
for sure.
Or that this is the discussion. They're in that mix.
Garnett's peak was higher. When Garnett was dominating, he was like a breathtakingly good player. Duncan didn't really have those peaks. He was more of a flat curve, but it was a really tall flatness.
Look, Duncan was a guy who put up 25 and 13 one season. We're not talking about a stiff.
Yeah, with a couple blocks. Yeah.
And being maybe the best defender in the league. He's freaking awesome.
But Garnett, man, Garnett put up a gaudy career. Like 22 points, 13 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks. Like, what? I mean,
and
those are
some
just
of those,
like simple numbers.
And you're not bringing up the even more impressive ones. Not only was he leading the league Not only did Garnett lead the league in rebounding 4 years in a row, he also was averaging over that period. He had 6 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 5.7. Yep. He was ridiculous.
He was a beast, and he finally turned into a mercenary and got his. But one of the real disappointments in like the what if thing was, Marbury and Garnett. They were so far, but I wanted to see them kind of have more years. And that story of Garnett crying when Marbury was traded is kind of a heartbreaking story.
Was he traded or did he leave as a free agent?
Oh, maybe it was free agency to New Jersey.
Yeah,
was it free agency?
I think he left. Build around Googs.
Googs was okay. I have not revisited Googs, but I don't think he will be terrible. Like if I revisit Keith Van Horn, Tom Chambers, I'm like, oh, Keith Van Horn
Chambers was a beast. I don't want to hear it.
I don't know. I have not thought about these guys in a while, but here we are.
I have not either. But the way he used to dunk from that free throw line off the pump fake in NBA jams, there's no way he wasn't a beast. That one where he brought the world down on Mark Jackson's head, beast.
I mean, He was a really great player in Bulls versus Lakers for Sega Genesis. He was unbeatable.
Oh, wait. Was that where he had the special move? It wasn't NBA Jams. It was a special move in what you're talking about.
Bulls versus Lakers. There was like
yeah. I think that was the one. He had this like free throw line thing where you do an up fake and then just like fly in from the free throw line and dunk it.
Yeah, there were sweet spots in that game. If you press the button in the right place on the court, it would just be like an unstoppable David Robinson 360.
I just looked up his numbers. He wasn't that great. Anyway, moving along.
Oh, man. Is this your king? Wow. A negative 6.6 career BPM.
I'm deeply disappointed, and the game was rigged. Before they changed BPM to this fraudulent thing, Tom Chambers was incredible.
I like your Chambers enthusiasm, though.
Oh, it's weird that they don't give him extra credit from dunking from the free throw line. Nerds. Seems now I get it. Lack of rim touching from the BPM community. But no. I think KG, like Iverson, was someone who was a modern futuristic player in a way that Tim Duncan is not.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Tim Duncan's, again, awesome. But they phased him out as an offensive player as time went on. And he was not the first he was not the best offensive player on that team, even close. We know who that was.
Manu was amazing.
It was Manu. Manu was one of the greatest two guards of all time, and Duncan was absolutely not as good as him offensively.
But sustained greatness for a longer time. Like, that's what gets him to this category where he was just like unfuckwithable, right? Like, Manu had injury up and down. Yeah, we have to factor all these things in. At Manu's peak, amazing. But Duncan was so good for so long. Like, he was unstoppable.
Duncan is also a beneficiary of rings bias.
We have not mentioned rings at all. You know, like Garnett is
I'm
right
saying
there
overall, not you. You elevated a plane far above winning and losing. I'm saying overall, Duncan obviously benefits perception-wise from rings bias.
Absolutely.
And Garnett ended up getting a championship, which actually did really help his reputation, 100%. Despite the fact that it was late in his career.
Yeah.
Didn't completely salvage it in the way it did for Dirk.
You really hate this era of big man.
I don't know who I like out of them. Give me Theo Ratliff or give me death.
Cookies episode 220. I've turned on Garnett.
No, Garnett just, to me, is a bit tragic in Minnesota, where they're like, oh, you're 7'1". You can kind of shoot. Okay, you're a small forward, but no threes allowed.
Terrell Brandon, let's go.
Baller.
Yeah, he was good. Kind of looked like Flip Saunders, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just have become very bored of Tim Duncan, and maybe it's because he's still kind of hanging around.
Super boring guy, though. This is like the Plot Against America, right? It's just beige and brown as far as the eye can see.
I had come around to really being a Tim Duncan respecter. We were all bullied into like appreciating this boring ass dude because
Doesn't sound like it.
Well, they beat LeBron, and that changes everything. Duncan was not well liked. In the same way that Dirk was viewed as a soft choker before beating LeBron, Duncan was viewed as being big fundamentals, this dreary.
People were annoyed every time the Spurs went to the finals. Like,
people hated the Spurs, hated them.
Exciting team, man.
But they went to war with LeBron,
yeah.
And they ended up beating LeBron. And all of a sudden, we love Tim Duncan. He's a hero. And the last couple of years, we're like, oh, Tim Duncan, he's so amazing. Look at his corduroys. He's wearing a flannel. What a cad.
Did you know he's not American?
He was a swimmer?
Yeah. But the love for Duncan, I have no problems with Tim Duncan. Like,
I don't either. I'm saying
coming around to him was cool.
Beating LeBron has an incredible effect on people's legacy.
An incredible feat. That's not easy
really
to
hard.
do.
It's so tough to do.
Yeah. Shout out to people who have done it because, wow, that's difficult.
Look at the guys we're talking about. It helped resuscitate, or not resuscitate, helped elevate Garnett to being an all-time great because they beat LeBron a couple times in the playoffs. Dirk, transformation.
Awesome. I'll take it.
Utter U-turn.
That was a difficult series, though, man. That was an engrossing series, and Dirk was awesome.
Yeah, he was. And it turned Duncan, the most reviled, bland, superstar out of the last 20 years into being like cute. Oh, look at him. He does no expression.
And he became a god when he beat the 99 Knicks with Marcus Camby. That's when he really elevated himself. His first championship in a shortened season versus our New York Knicks.
Right. No one ever denied his greatness, but he was not well liked. And all of a sudden, he's like cute. That guy was supporting Bloomberg. Get out of here.
I don't know where this is coming from, but I like it. I like your Tim Duncan vitriol. It's
finally someone has the heart to say it.
So just going down the list: Dirk, fraud; Duncan, fraud.
Yeah, fraud.
That's very cool. The NCAA fraud, check.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good for me, man. I like it.
You're all in on the NCAA,
Yeah.
Oh, Nash fraud.
Oh yeah, right. Steve Nash is a fraud.
Any other icons of the early 2000s that we can bring to heel?
Well, Charlie Ward, God, like his best friend, Lord Jesus.
Iverson, Goat,
the logo. I think that covers the entire history of the NBA.
I got a Stackhouse agenda coming, so hold on to your hats, folks.
Stay tuned.
All right, let's move on. And by that I mean we'll see you guys Monday.
Have a good weekend, guys. Hang in there. Cookies.